Hi, my name is Paul Abernathy, and I'm the Manager of Codes and Standards here at Encore Wire. On today's episode of From the Desk of Codes and Standards, we're going to answer a question that I recently received from an electrical inspector who questioned the use of our triplex product that uses a yellow conductor as the grounded or neutral conductor in its cabling process. Now, I got the call and they asked that the NEC requires that the grounded or neutral conductor has to be either white or gray, or it can be any color other than green with 3 white or gray stripes along its entire length. Now, I had to inform the individual that that is true. If it is 6 gauge and smaller, that would be accurate. However, when you're dealing with a gauge of 4 and larger, then the code has a little different provision than that, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And I might give you some advice when it talks about re-identifying the equipment grounding conductor or what you can do in those options as well. Because the product that we're going to talk about today is basically a URD cable or a residential distribution cable, URD or UDC product. In this case, we're talking about the aluminum product. It's 8000 series aluminum. That means that it's designed to be used in a building. Of course, you could use it outside of the building, but it's 8000 series, so that means it meets the requirements under the NEC under 310.106 for the AA8000 series type of aluminum, which is much more flexible, ductile, if you will, and it has been proven over the last 30 years to be a reliable conductor, just as reliable as copper in most cases. So this is the application. So the inspector saw this yellow, and he rejected it. And so I had to get involved. And so when I got involved, I said, look, the first things is first. Is the conductors 6 gauge and smaller? And in our case, it was not. They were 4 and larger. So I directed the inspector to a specific area of the code. That's section 200.6. Now that's broken down into an A and a B and a C and a D and an E, and it goes, that's how it's broken down into the different parts. So I directed him to look at 200.6B. And if you have your code book, again, I'm using the 2014 National Electrical Code. And if you go look at 200.6B, you're going to see that it says sizes 4 AWG and larger. It says an insulated grounded conductor 4 AWG or larger shall be identified by one of the following means. One of the following means. And let's look at it. There's 4 choices here. The first one says it can be continuous, white outer finish where its entire length continuous. Now that's the same as would be required if it was 6 and smaller, so we could do that. Item 2 says a continuous gray outer finish, and that's also an option. That's the same as for 6 and smaller. You could do that for 4 and larger. The third option again is the same as 6 and smaller under 200.6A in that it can be 3 continuous white or gray stripes along the conductor's entire length on other than green insulation. So basically I could have any color I want other than green, and I could put 3 white or gray stripes on it, and it could be used as a grounded or neutral conductor depending on your need. Now, item 4 is the one we want to deal with, and that's what I had to help the inspector out with. Item number 4 said, at the time of installation, by a distinctive white or gray marking at its terminations, the marking shall encircle the conductor or insulation. So I don't have to take the conductor and wrap it with white or gray tape all the way down to the point where it enters into the enclosure. I only have to encircle it. So I go around it once with a white or gray tape. And that's what I do at the time of installation. So at that point, I am meeting the allowance in 200.6B. So if it's 4 and larger, I can take this yellow conductor, and if it's going inside of the building, in other words, it's on the load side of the service point or the premise wiring portion of the building, I could re-identify that yellow by putting a white or a gray stripe around it, and I could call it a grounded or neutral conductor. And that would be perfectly acceptable. Now, here's the next thing that people will say. Well, this is URD or UDC, underground distribution cable. You can't bring it into a building. Well, this is USE-2, of course, that's under UL 854, and that itself can't come into a building. However, our products are what's called dual rated or triple rated. And what that means is we evaluate the installation for more than just one rating. So this is USE-2, but it is also RHH and RHW-2. And those are permitted within the building wiring system, and you will find that as well under 310.104 in the tables. You'll see that it's there. Okay, so all of that is in there, and the aluminum conductors 8000 series is allowed to be used in the building premise wiring under 310.106 of the National Electrical Code. So we meet all that there. So as you can see, it's perfectly acceptable. Now, why do we choose to use a yellow? Why do we want to add the confusion? Well, here's the reason. At every structure, you'll have a point where the utility leaves off and the premise wiring begins, and usually it's the service point of the building. Now, if it's a service lateral and it's coming to a building, that's an underground supply to the building. Usually will come up to a meter enclosure and what have you. If that is outside of the building, and it is outside of the service point, then you have to look at the NEC under 90.2 item B. And what that's going to say is, ask yourself, is it under the exclusive control of the utility? If it's under the control of the utility, then it is outside the scope of the National Electrical Code. Now, the National Electrical Safety Code, or the standard that the utility industry uses, clearly permit the use of yellow for that conductor. It also permits the use of a black conductor with yellow striping for that application. So why do we do it? Well, we do it because this product is designed to be used not only for a utility application, but also for a premise wiring application. So we've talked about how you can use it inside the premise by the re-identification aspect of it when it's 4 gauge and larger. But we also show you that outside of it, or maybe on the line side of a service point, when it would fall under the utility, they're going to allow the yellow to be used as well. So we're kind of meeting two requirements here, two different standards, if you will. So that's why we do it, so that the product can be used in multiple applications. The USE-2 is outside of the building for direct burial, and then the RHH and RHW-2 is for when you would transition over to the inside of the building. So that's why we choose to use the yellow. Again, the National Electrical Code has no problem with the application. Now, the next question I get from people, if I want to transition this product, and we'll use this product specifically, which is a quadruplex, which has 3-phase conductors and 1 grounded conductor or neutral, depending on your system. So I've got 3 blacks and a yellow, and I want to bring it in the building now. Well, let's say I'm going to run it into an EMT, or I'm going to run into an intermediate metal conduit or a rigid metal conduit, and I'm going to use the actual conduit or raceway as the effective ground fault current path or the equipment grounding conductor. That is permitted under 250.118. Then I can simply pull these conductors in it. I have the neutral or grounded conductor, I have my phase conductors, and I have that effective ground fault current path by using the raceway. However, if I'm pulling it in PVC, I have to add an equipment grounding conductor. So what if I'm using this product for a single phase application inside of a building? Well, it's already plexed, so you got the advantages of that with the pulling. There's lower coefficient of friction involved when you plex the conductors. So you already have that involved. But here you notice that I have possibly a need for single phase. So I've got 3 phase conductors. I use one of them for an equipment grounding conductor. Can I do that? I can leave the yellow and re-identify it as we spoke earlier in 200.6b. But what about the equipment grounding conductor in this offering? Well, that's a simple one too. All you do is go into the code and go to 250.119, and this is where you get the requirements for identifying equipment grounding conductors. And basically it gives you some options here. So we're going to go down into option A, and that's going to say conductors 4 AWG and larger. It says that the equipment grounding conductors for 4 AWG and larger shall comply with 250.119A1 and A2. So what's A1 say? A1 says an insulated or covered conductor 4 and larger shall be permitted at the time of installation to be permanently identified as an equipment grounding conductor at each end and at each point where the conductor is accessible. What is that telling me? That means that if it's 4 and larger, that I can do just like I did on the grounded conductor over in 200.6b, I can re-identify it. Then it goes on to item 2 and says, how do you do that? So item 2 says, which is the 250.119A2, and it says, I can identify it by encircling the conductor, and it shall be accomplished by one of the following. 1, I could just simply strip off the insulation, exposing the bare conductor, and utilize that, because you know that 250.118 says that the equipment grounding conductor can be bare, covered, or insulated. So you're making it a bare conductor, and that is one of the options here. You can just strip off that insulation. The second option is I can actually color the insulation. I can paint it. Make sure you use a paint that is not going to be counterproductive or deteriorating to the actual insulation. And it's not the best method I would choose, The best method I would choose is C. And C says that the marking of the insulation or covering with a green tape or green adhesive label at the terminations. So simply, again, I can encircle it with green electrical tape, and that's going to identify it at the terminal. Again, I got to do it at all terminations and all accessible points on the system, but that's all I have to do. So in this product here, I can take any of these conductors and use them as the equipment grounded conductor by either stripping off the insulation, by painting it green, or by encircling it with tape or other adhesive label that's green to identify it as an equipment grounded conductor. So those are the options. So this product is very versatile. And that's why we triple rate it. That's why it's USE-2 for an outside application. For indoor applications, the RHH, RHW-2, the sky's the limit on how you use this product. And the reason, again, that we color this grounded/neutral conductor yellow is so that it can meet two different standards. It can meet the National Electrical Safety Code standard that the utility industry uses if they want to use this product. And we can also meet the requirements for premise wiring under the National Electrical Code NFPA 70. So that's why we do it. And basically, it allows the product to be used for a wide range of applications without the worry of violating the code by one product that might not cover another aspect of the code. So hopefully that answered the question on why we choose yellow as our grounded/neutral conductor depending on your need, and that's why we do it. Again, if you have any additional questions, keep them coming. Send them at codes@encorewire.com, and I'll be more than happy to answer any of your code questions, whether it's the wire and cable industry questions or anything that you have about the National Electrical Code. Feel free to email us and let us know, and we'll try to answer those questions for you. Thanks for watching.